Lucas Hale had never liked long train rides, but this time he had no choice. The small town of Blackridge, hidden deep in the northern mountains, had sent an urgent message asking for his help. They claimed that strange events had been happening for weeks, lights appearing in the forest at night, people hearing whispers coming from abandoned mines, and several hikers disappearing without leaving a trace. Most people dismissed the reports as superstition or exaggeration, but Lucas wasn't most people. He was a researcher in environmental anomalies, a field that blended science, history, and, at times, mystery. Whenever the natural world behaved in an unusual way, Lucas was called. The train rattled as it moved deeper into the mountains. Outside the window, the forests grew thicker, darker, almost untouched. The trees leaned toward the tracks as if they were watching him pass. The fog hugged the ground in long, pale ribbons. Lucas opened his notebook and read the message again. Blackridge is changing. We don't know how much time we have. Please come. Mayor Evelyn Carter. The words bothered him. What exactly was changing, and why did the mayor sound afraid? A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Lucas looked up. A woman about his age stood there, holding a heavy backpack. Her dark coat was covered with little drops of melted snow, and her eyes had a sharp, focused look. "No, go ahead," Lucas said. She sat down and looked at him for a moment. "You're going to Blackridge too, right?" Lucas raised an eyebrow. "How do you know?" She nodded towards his notebook. "People don't usually write about Blackridge unless they have a reason." Lucas closed the notebook slowly. "And what's your reason?" She hesitated for a moment, then spoke quietly. "My brother disappeared there last month." The train wheels screeched as they entered a long tunnel. The lights flickered. The woman's face was suddenly pale and tense. Lucas cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, truly. I'm Lucas." "Mara," she replied. When the train exited the tunnel, the mountains appeared again, taller, darker, almost threatening, and far in the distance, Lucas saw something strange, a bright white light glowing among the trees. It vanished a second later. Mara saw it too. "That's the second time I've seen that today," she whispered. Lucas closed his notebook. Whatever was happening in Blackridge, it had already begun. The train screeched to a halt at the old Blackridge station, a lonely wooden platform surrounded by towering pines. The air was colder than Lucas expected, sharp, almost metallic, and for a moment it felt as if the entire station was holding its breath. No voices, no crowds, not even the sound of a passing car. Only silence. Mara stepped off the train first, tightening the straps on her backpack. Lucas followed, scanning the area. A single lamppost flickered, struggling to stay lit. "Strange welcome," Lucas muttered. "Blackridge hasn't been normal for weeks," Mara replied. They walked toward the station exit, but before they could reach it, an older woman appeared from behind a door. Her face was lined with worry, and she wore a thick coat even though the cold didn't seem severe enough for it. "You must be Mr. Hale," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm Mayor Evelyn Carter." Lucas shook her hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong, but her eyes darted nervously toward the tree line. "And you must be Mara Avery," Mayor Carter added, lowering her voice. "I heard about your brother. I'm very sorry." Mara nodded politely, though her jaw tightened. The mayor didn't waste time. "We need to leave the station. It's not safe to stay out in the open for too long." Lucas frowned. "Why not?" The mayor hesitated, looking toward the forest before speaking. "Because of the whispers. They travel through the wind. The longer you stand still, the easier it is for them to find you." Mara scoffed quietly. "Whispers? Spirits? Ghost stories?" The mayor looked at her directly. "Stay here long enough, and you'll understand these aren't stories." Lucas exchanged a look with Mara. He didn't believe in spirits, but the mare's fear was real. Too real. They followed her to an old pickup truck parked near the edge of the station. As they moved, Lucas noticed fresh claw marks on a wooden post, deep, uneven, and definitely not from any normal animal. He ran his fingers over them. What made these? The mare swallowed. "We don't know, but whatever it is, it's getting bolder." The three of them climbed into the truck. As the engine started, Lucas looked out the window. For a moment, he could have sworn he saw a figure standing between the trees, pale, motionless, watching. But when the truck's headlights swept across the forest, the figure was gone. "Mare," Lucas said, "I saw something, someone in the woods." The mare's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "There are things in those woods we don't look at twice, not unless we want them to follow us." The truck drove into town, past dark houses and empty streets. Every window had curtains tightly shut. Every street lamp flickered. No life, no movement. Mara leaned closer to Lucas. "This place feels wrong." "It feels scared," Lucas corrected. They finally stopped in front of the town hall, an old stone building with boarded-up windows. The mare turned off the engine and faced them. "You both came here because something is happening in Blackridge, but what I'm about to tell you is worse than what you've heard." Lucas and Mara waited, silent. The mare took a deep breath. Whatever is in that forest didn't come from Blackridge, and now it's spreading. Before Lucas could ask what she meant, a sudden scream echoed through the town, sharp, terrified, coming from a house nearby. Mara froze. "Did you hear that?" Lucas didn't answer. He was already running toward the sound, and Mara was right behind him. The next morning, Maya woke up earlier than usual. The soft sound of waves hitting the rocks outside her window reminded her of the strange moment she had experienced the night before, the flickering light from the abandoned lighthouse. She wasn't sure whether it had been real or just her imagination, but the thought stayed with her like a quiet whisper. After a quick breakfast, Maya decided to investigate. She walked toward the lighthouse, following the narrow, winding path along the cliff. The sky was cloudy, and a cold wind pushed against her jacket, but she kept going. The lighthouse stood tall and silent, its paint peeling, its door half broken, and the metal railing rusted by years of storms. Inside, the air smelled of damp stone and old wood. Dust floated in the dim light coming from the small windows. Maya's footsteps echoed as she climbed the spiral staircase. Each step seemed to creak like it hadn't been touched in years. Near the top, she noticed something unusual, a wooden box hidden under a loose floorboard. The board looked like someone had lifted it recently. Curious, Maya kneeled down, lifted the board, and pulled out the box. It was small, locked, and covered with a thin layer of dust. When she shook it gently, she heard something rattle inside. After a moment of hesitation, she pushed the fragile lock until it snapped open. Inside, there was a letter, yellow, folded carefully, and sealed with old red wax. Her heart beat faster as she opened it. The letter was written in elegant handwriting. "If someone finds this, know that the lighthouse did not fall silent on its own. What happened here must never be forgotten. Seek the one who still remembers." There was no name, no date. Maya stared at the letter, confused but intrigued. Who wrote it? What were they trying to warn about? And who was the one who still remembers? As Maya stood there, a sudden gust of cold air swept through the lighthouse, slamming the door below. She froze. She wasn't sure if she was alone anymore. But one thing was clear. Whatever mystery she had stepped into was deeper than she expected. Maya rushed down the spiral staircase, the letter still in her hand. The door had slammed shut so loudly that it echoed through the entire lighthouse, and for a moment she thought someone else was inside. But when she stepped outside, the coast was silent again. Only the waves and the wind remained. She took a deep breath and looked around. The village was visible in the distance, its small houses lined up along the shore. She knew she had to show the letter to someone, but she wasn't sure who. Seek the one who still remembers. The words repeated in her mind like an unanswered question. As Maya walked back toward the path, she noticed an old man sitting on a wooden bench near the water. He hadn't been there when she arrived earlier. He wore a long, dark coat and a wool hat pulled low over his eyes. He seemed to be staring at the lighthouse, as if he were lost in thought. When she approached, the man slowly turned his head toward her. "You went inside," he said, his voice rough but steady. Maya felt a chill. "How did you know?" "The lighthouse, it reacts to people. It has been waiting." His words made no sense, yet he spoke them calmly as if explaining something ordinary. Maya hesitated, then showed him the letter. "Do you know anything about this? It was hidden upstairs." The old man took the letter with trembling fingers. The moment he saw the handwriting, his eyes widened. For a few seconds, he didn't speak at all. Finally, he whispered, "I never thought I'd see this again." Maya sat beside him. "You know who wrote it?" "Yes," the man said quietly. "She was my sister, Lydia." There was pain in his voice, the kind that had grown old but never faded. "Your sister?" Maya asked softly. "What happened to her?" The old man looked out toward the lighthouse. The wind picked up, brushing against the waves and carrying the sound of distant gulls. "She was the last lighthouse keeper, and she disappeared 30 years ago." Maya's heart tightened. "Disappeared? How?" "No one knows," he answered. "The light went out in the middle of a storm. When they searched the lighthouse the next day, she was gone, like she had vanished into the sea." He handed the letter back to her. "But if someone found this now, it means the truth didn't stay buried." Maya swallowed. "What truth?" The man stood slowly, leaning on his cane. "You shouldn't return there alone anymore. Something in that lighthouse never left the night my sister disappeared." A cold wave of fear washed over her, but at the same time, curiosity burned even stronger. As the old man began walking away, he added without turning back, "If you want answers, come to my house tonight. There are things you need to see." Maya watched him disappear along the shore, the letter clutched tightly in her hand. The mystery had just grown darker, and she knew she couldn't stop now.
That evening, the wind grew colder, and the sky turned a deep shade of violet. Maya made her way along the narrow path toward the old man's house. The village had become quiet. Only a few windows glowed with warm yellow light. Everything felt still, as if the entire place was holding its breath. The old man, whose name she had learned was Elias, lived in a small wooden cottage at the edge of the village. Its roof was covered in dark shingles, and the windows were fogged from the inside. Maya knocked gently. The door opened almost immediately. "Come in," Elias said, stepping aside. His face looked even older in the dim lamplight, but his eyes were sharp, filled with the weight of years. Inside, the house smelled faintly of salt and burning wood. Shelves were filled with maps, journals, and old photographs. A fireplace crackled softly. Elias gestured toward a table near the center of the room. "Sit. There is something you need to understand before you go back to the lighthouse." Maya sat, watching as he opened a small wooden chest. Inside were letters, dozens of them, tied with a thin ribbon. Her breath caught in her throat. "These were Lydia's," Elias said. She wrote them during her years as lighthouse keeper. He handed one to Maya. The handwriting matched the letter she had found. As she opened it, her pulse quickened. It described strange things Lydia had witnessed: flickering lights on the sea where no boats sailed, voices carried on the wind, and shadows moving inside the lighthouse when she was the only one there. Maya looked up. She was scared. Yes, Elias said quietly, but she didn't leave her post. The lighthouse was everything to her. He handed her another letter, older, written in a rushed hand. This one chilled Maya to the bone. Something is inside the lighthouse. It watches. It waits. She swallowed hard. Do you think something took her? Elias didn't answer immediately. Instead, he rose and walked to a dusty cabinet. From it, he pulled out a metal box and set it on the table. He unlocked it slowly, as if opening it hurt. Inside the box was an old journal, leather-bound, weathered by time. This was Lydia's final journal, he said. They never found it. I did. Maya opened the first page. The writing was shaky, the ink smeared in places, as if Lydia had written in fear or in a storm. The last entry stopped Maya's breath. If someone finds this, the light went out by itself. It wasn't the storm. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I am not alone. I will hide the truth where it can be found when the time is right. The sea is calling. I fear it knows my name. Maya felt a shiver crawl up her spine. She knew she was in danger. Elias nodded, and she hid something important, something in the lighthouse. Maya closed the journal. What do you think it is? Elias looked at her with a mixture of sorrow and determination. That lighthouse holds secrets older than this village, he said. If you want answers, you must go back, but not at night, never at night. Maya nodded slowly, but deep down she knew one thing: she would return, night or not. As she prepared to leave, Elias added in a low voice, "And Maya, if you hear footsteps when you're alone, don't follow them. That's what took my sister." Maya stepped outside into the cold night air, the journal pressed against her chest. The lighthouse stood in the distance, a dark shape against the moonlit sea, waiting.
The wind had grown stronger by the time Maya returned to the small guest house where she was staying. The wooden walls creaked softly, and each gust carried the distant roar of the sea. She placed Lydia's final journal on the table and sat beside it, running her fingers over the cracked leather cover. Everything had changed in a single day. What was supposed to be a simple research trip had turned into a mystery wrapped in fear, loss, and unanswered questions. But Maya wasn't leaving, not until she knew the truth. She opened the journal again, turning to the last few pages. Some lines were nearly unreadable, smeared by water or tears, but one sentence stood out more than the rest, circled several times. "The answer lies beneath the stairs." Maya whispered the words, "Beneath the stairs," but she didn't remember seeing anything unusual under the staircase in the lighthouse. Maybe she needed to look more carefully. A sudden loud crack came from the hallway outside her room. Maya froze. It sounded like a footstep. Her heart raced. She waited, listening. Another creak followed, then another, slow, steady, approaching. Her mind raced back to Elias's warning. If you hear footsteps when you're alone, don't follow them. But someone had to be outside. The guest house wasn't empty. She walked to the door and pressed her ear against it. For a moment, silence filled the hallway. Then, tap, tap, tap. Soft footsteps, stopping right in front of her door. Maya's breath caught in her throat. "Hello?" she called, her voice shaking slightly. "Is someone there?" No answer. Just silence. Her hand hovered over the doorknob, but she forced herself to step away. She remembered Elias's face, how serious, almost frightened he had looked. Whatever happened to Lydia was not something she intended to invite into her room. After several minutes, the footsteps slowly faded away. Trying to calm her racing heart, Maya returned to the table and focused on the journal. She read through Lydia's notes, trying to piece together the clues. One entry described an unusual hatch near the base of the staircase, hidden under old wooden boards. Lydia believed it led to a forgotten maintenance tunnel or storage room. Another entry mentioned hearing voices from beneath the floor, whispers she couldn't understand. Maya swallowed hard. If there is something beneath the stairs, I have to find it. Her fear slowly shifted into determination. But as she closed the journal, she heard something that turned her blood cold. A whisper, soft, right outside her window. She slowly turned her head toward the glass. The moonlight reflected off the sea, but the window itself was dark, and the whisper came again, clearer this time. A woman's voice, close, too close. "Don't go." Maya stumbled backward, knocking over her chair. She grabbed her phone with shaky hands and dialed Elias's number. It rang only once before he answered. "Maya? What's wrong?" "I heard something outside my window. I heard a woman whisper." Silence on the other end. Then Elias said quietly, "Pack your things. Come to my house. Stay there tonight. And whatever happens, do not look out the window." Maya hung up, her heart pounding painfully. She threw her belongings into her bag, keeping her eyes away from the window. But as she reached for the door, the whisper returned, this time from inside the room. "Maya, he didn't tell you everything." Her breath stopped. She ran for the door, yanked it open, and fled into the hallway without looking back. The truth was waiting for her, and now something else was waiting too.